Hey, welcome to the channel. It's your boy DarthModuh. How's everyone doing today? Happy Easter for those of you guys who are celebrating. For those of you guys who have been here before, my name is DarthModuh. And for those of you guys who have, I should say, for those of you who haven't been here before, my name is DarthModuh. For those of you who have been here before, welcome back. I hope everyone's having a very, very joyous, restful day. Hope you're spending it with family, and I'm very happy for those of you guys who are tuning in. And I should say, cheers. Gonna pop open my Heineken. Cheers to everyone out there. To all you Coomers. Hey, Mella. What's up, Jason? How's everyone doing? Thanks for being here today. What's up? I actually messed up. I started the stream. I thought I started the stream. I realized I didn't press live, and so I did the whole introduction. What's up, Bill? Bill. What's up, Bill? How's everyone doing today? Is my audio sounding good? I don't want to be so close to the mic because I want to get a better picture, but I can't. I want to know if this sounds good. So let me know if it's good. I'm going to keep going. All right. So Barry Lyndon. It's one of my favorite films, and it's one of the films that I've seen of Kubrick. It's the most recent film that I've seen. Thanks, Mella. Sounds good. Perfect. Awesome. So it's a slow burn. It's a 3-hour-long period piece about an Irish rogue. And yeah, I when I first saw this film, I didn't appreciate it, and I was very, very drunk. And I'm gonna talk about my experience with the film inside my little essay that I wrote. But for those of you who have seen the film, and you either like this film or you don't, and it's not for everyone. So if you don't like this film, you can watch this video, so you don't have to watch the film. And I'm gonna go over a little synopsis of it first. Bill, you've never seen the film? Yeah, I mean, it's like I said, it's a slow burn. I like this film because it's one of those films that I can turn on and I can just kind of leave it on, go about my day. And every time I look at it, there's something beautiful to watch on the screen. It's a very visually stunning film. It's very, how should I say? It's very ethereal. The lighting, the textures, all of the landscapes with the very realistic and often pieces of the period that are being filmed, like some of the clothing, like the officers' uniforms, those are all real that they took from museums, I believe. And yes, exactly, Bill. It is like a moving oil painting. It very much is a master of his craft, really showing the audience what it is he can do. And this film was nominated for 7 Oscars. It won 4. The ones it won were Best Art Direction, Best Costume Design, Best Cinematography, and Best Score. And it was nominated Best Picture, Best Director, and Best Adapted Screenplay. Released by Warner Brothers in 1975 in the United States and Columbia Warner Distributors in the United Kingdom. Cinematography by John Alcott, who's the recipient of the Oscar. Starring Ryan O'Neal, Marissa Berenson, Patrick Magee, Hardy Kruger, Diana Corner, Gay Hamilton, with narration by Michael Hordern. Adapted from the 1844 novel by William Makepeace Thackeray, The Luck of Barry Lyndon. Now, the budget of the film was $11 million with a box office of $31.5 million. So it was a flop. But it didn't really matter because Kubrick really was like I was talking about in my Shining essay, which if you haven't yet, go back and watch my Enter the Shining video. In that video, I talk about how Warner Brothers was pretty much giving Stanley blank checks, and they allowed Stanley to utilize any resource he needed. They allowed him to shoot however long he one of his films took, I believe it might have been this film, it took up to 7 years or something, with all of the writing and pre-production, with everything that comes up to the movie. I believe it took something like 7 years. So that's quite amazing. So I saw my first Kubrick film, 2001, as I talked about before, in about 6th or 7th grade. And it would not be until I was much older that I finally saw The Shining in college. I was 19 or 20 when I saw that film. Hold on one second. Let's go here real quick. Okay, there we go. 31.5 million is considered a flop. Yes, it is considered a flop, considering that a lot of the films at the time were making a lot more than that. To be considered a hit, it had to, you know, I guess you could say it tripled the profit margin, but you have to remember that 31.5 million that is not the profit of the film. That's just the box office. The profit, what's 31.5 minus 11? I guess it would be 20.5 million for an $11 million film. I mean, I'm sorry, that's not a lot of money considering how much money some of the other films at the time were making. And also talking about Stanley Kubrick, who was very upset with how this film was received, in addition to how very much upset he was with his following film, which was The Shining. And the reason he made The Shining was in reaction to this film, and I should say it was a reaction to the reaction of how this film. So yeah, I do consider $31.5 million box office. I do not consider that a hit. I mean, you could argue that it's not a flop, but considering we're talking about Stanley, I do. Now, I love the film, but at the time, it had mixed reviews. It did get the Oscar nominations that it deserved, I believe, and I would say that it definitely deserved the ones it won as well. Now, when I was 19 or 20, I saw The Shining, and from that point until about 26, at some point I saw Strangelove and Paths of Glory. Then I watched Full Metal Jacket and Clockwork Orange in that order. That's how I've watched the films. And when I finished Clockwork Orange, I thought that I had watched all of the Kubrick films that were the most important. And in July 25th, 2021, I broke my leg. It happened during a jiu-jitsu training session where I was preparing for a tournament. It was a tibia plateau fracture. And from what I come to understand, results most often in patients involved in head-on collisions while driving in vehicles. So the type of injury that I received typically happens in those types of accidents. But mine was a jiu-jitsu related accident. Lucky for me, I was able to get the medical care I needed practically instantly. And the recovery process, which I was told at the time should have taken maybe 6 to 8 months, it took me about 4 months to recover. And it was a grueling process with physical therapy. And after I I didn't put this in the essay, but I do remember now, obviously now. But last year, 2 years after I got in, I felt fully recovered, but then I got into a car accident, and I got some tests done on my bone structure, and they were telling me that I did have trauma from the accidents. And so I went through another recovery process from that accident. But going back to when I first my leg, without the use of just one leg, I was rendered helpless, bedridden, immobile, workless, and in my mind at the time, completely worthless. And what we find at the end of Barry Lyndon is that the main character is rendered just as I was, but in a far worse condition because his leg had to be amputated. So I did not see this film until after I had broken my leg. And I think that if I had seen this film before my own accident, I think I would have looked at it much more differently. But because I had already gone through that experience, I believe that now, just as I was telling you guys before in, was I talking about The Shining? Was it when I was talking about The Shining? Pretty much I'll say this. All of the things that I've talked about in my past videos, when you guys go back and watch some of my other videos, all of these things are very personal to me because a lot of the things that happen to the characters I've sort of gone through myself in a weird way. Yeah, it is a trip. It's a long, strange trip. Very long, strange trip. Unfortunately, without ever seeing Barry Lyndon, I had just presupposed that the film was just completely worthless and immobile, just as I was. I did not think the film had anything for me. I figured it was a boring period piece about a guy does stuff and goes places, and nothing really happens. And those types of films never really interested me. I'm very interested in plot and character development. And on the surface, Barry Lyndon doesn't seem to have any of that. It's not until you peer and watch it multiple times, which is a grueling process. It's a 3-hour film. It's not until you do that you realize that there is a lot of substance in between the lines. It seemed like it was more of a romance-centered film, and I do not like romances or romantic comedies, except for The Princess Bride, which will be a future video. I never sought out to watch Barry Lyndon. It was not until I saw the YouTube documentary Ice Cream that there was something in that documentary that piqued my interest. Most likely due to the heavy utilization of the score from Barry Lyndon in the video by YouTuber Joe Girard. It's a video I've talked about before. What was it about the score that left it unable to move out of my auditory cortex? Would I ever get that haunting piano flux so consciously with the piercing cello melody to leave my mind? Perhaps if I witnessed Kubrick's often overlooked adaptation of The Irish Rogue, I could erase it and go back to the endless mind loop of the theme from Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. Not sure which one's better. I love me some Mighty Morphin. I decided to purchase the film on Amazon Prime in January of 2022. Most likely, I was drunk, and it was actually on New Year's. So I guess I was sort of a New Year's present to myself, and I guess it made sense to watch it on New Year's Day for me. I probably made myself another drink. Cheers again. Press play, and I probably passed out about 10 minutes into the film. I think I remember that. And Yeah. It was not until many, many viewings later that I formed my own opinions of the film. And some of my opinions are based off of observations that I've had, and I don't see a lot of the things that I've noticed talked about on YouTube, at least in my section of the algorithm. So hopefully you guys get some more insight from this. And if not, I hope you guys are here just having a good time, relaxing with me. For all of you guys who are out there, thank you for coming and having this stream with me. I know it's Easter, and I know, typically people are at home with their families, and I am also going to be having time with my family, and it's very, very important to do that. So if you can't stay for the entire stream, and you have to do your thing with the loved ones, come back and watch it later. There's no harm in doing that. I save all of my stuff, and I'm adding this to my playlist, so this will be included in the playlist of all my past deep dives. Last week we did a Pink Floyd tier list. So if you like Pink Floyd, or you're interested in psychedelic rock, or you just have some time and you want to watch a video, go back and watch my Pink Floyd tier list. Okay. Stanley Kubrick is known for nearly an almost psychedelic quality to the content and subject matter of his pictures, for the juxtaposition of beautiful images with the harsh reality of human nature. While he does achieve this in a certain sense with Barry Lyndon, I believe it stands apart from something like A Clockwork Orange or 2001, because in Barry Lyndon, the audience is never asked to suspend any disbelief. Everything that is happening on the screen seems to have actually happened in our reality. From the costumes to the set, from the dialogue to the choice of camera and the long double shots, the entire picture appears to us, the audience, as a glimpse into a past not so distant and a reality not at all different from our own. Kubrick ultimately shows us that the issues humanity faces are eternal, and that often our short-sighted solutions to those ever-present problems result in a deepening of trauma, which leads to a sentiment of hate towards and a fear of our fellow human beings. Yes, Mighty Morphin Power Rangers does have the best theme song. Correct. That guitar, that Eddie Van Halen inspired riff. Go, go, Power Rangers. Okay. Though some of the themes I'm going to be talking about have been discussed ad nauseum, I have structured this discussion by these three themes: fate, greed, and classism. Not only are these some of the most prevalent issues presented throughout the picture, but I believe that they allow what appears to be a difficult to watch piece. It allows that piece to become one of the most accessible of all Kubrick's films. I mean, think about it. Kubrick is not afraid of showing the extent of human greed. His first real film, The Killing, 1956, dealt with a group of characters who, for one reason or another, are all driven to satisfy their want for money. The pre-evolved sapiens at the beginning of 2001, 1968, defend their territory from an invading group of nearly identical ape men. The dispute is over a pond where the ape people can clean themselves, drink, raise their young. Alex DeLarge collects a fierce bounty from his ultra-violent exploits amidst the apocalyptic world of Clockwork Orange, 1971. If it is not greed for wealth that drives Alex and his droogs, then it is greed for violence and unbridled passion. It is this same greed that drives Redmond Barry towards goals he will never accomplish, as well as seal his fate to be remembered as a mere upstart. So, essentially, Kubrick's films all deal with an anti-materialistic perspective, right? I believe that a lot of what Kubrick is trying to tell us through his filmography is that the real important things are the relationships that we have with people and how we identify when we stray from right action. Okay? So, for instance, in The Shining, Jack is not a good father. Kubrick's giving us an example of how toxic masculinity invades families. In Clockwork Orange, we, the audience, are forced to examine Alex DeLarge's complex character because, on one hand, Alex is someone to be feared and to be sort of disgusted by. On the other hand, by the end of the film, Alex has sort of become a sympathetic character that we and the masses of citizens within the novel who are reading the news, well, I shouldn't say the mass of citizens, I should say the Daily Mail, they are sympathetic towards Alex as well. And through that complexity, we have to recognize Alex's humanity, which is not a materialistic trait to be a single human, to have an identity, to have a soul. Those are all non-materialistic traits. And Kubrick also is showing us this in Barry Lyndon. By the end of the film, due to the title card that he has at the end, which is taken from the book by William Makepeace Thackeray, what he is insinuating in that title card at the end is that it does not matter what class you belong to, does not matter how much wealth you amass. We are all destined to be one day back in the earth. Barry begins the film by coveting the hand of his cousin in marriage, a longing that puts him at odds with an Englishman I am and a man of property, this Captain Quinn. He's like, oi, you gonna come over here? You're not gonna take your cousin? I'm trying to. I like your cousin, Matt. That's what he sounds like in the film. It's Captain Quinn. So once the ability to take his cousin into marriage is taken from him, Barry begins to obsess over being in a proper sphere or class. By becoming a soldier for England in the 7 Years' War, he is able to accumulate a certain wealth and prestige, which he eventually does through a course of events. He defects from England by impersonating an officer whose name is oddly Fakenham. And then he's discovered by a Prussian officer to be a farce. Then he is forced to take the bounty, joins the Prussian military, and eventually becomes an officer and a spy for the Prussians. So, I mean, this guy is a sort of, he's sort of this 18th century Forrest Gump. Yeah, he wants a bottle of water. There's no bottles around, so we get a picture. A picture of water. Oi, my name's Lieutenant Fakenham. I got military briefs for the captain. That's how everyone sounds in the film, by the way. Once Barry reaches a fine class amongst the Prussian military, I mean, he's no doubt getting honored and paid, and he still covets a better life presented by his mentor. And in the novel, this is actually his uncle, a character by the name of the Chevalier de Bali-Bali. he becomes his uncle's. He becomes a gambler in league with the Chevalier, his uncle, and they use these cheating tactics where it's now it kind of reminds me of, like, we were just talking about Forrest Gump and how Forrest Gump had all these exploits. You know, in the course of the film, Barry does a lot of different things. One of the things he does is he helps his uncle cheat at I guess it's some sort of bridge or Pinocchio. Is that how you pronounce it? Oi, Jason Scholl says. Oh, he's a complete nutter. Oh, I can't say that. Bloody hell. Jason one. Okay, let's see. Bill Hicks says Jason 100 basically tortures his actors to squeeze out these performances. They're no longer acting. There's a case to be made. Not everyone. When we talk about The Shining, everyone talks about how Shelley Duvall, you know, her hair falling out and all the bad things that happened. But I don't know if you remember this, but they asked Scatman Crothers in an interview. They were like, "What was your experience on The Shining?" And he cried. So, yeah, that's a very good point, Bill. Where was I? So he's helping his uncle cheat at bridge or whatever, and what he does is he's the servant of the Chevalier, and he pours specific beverages and offers specific beverages, or he'll wipe the counter. He'll do all of these things, and each time he does something, it means that the person his uncle is playing against has a specific hand or a specific suit. And so that's how they make money. They cheat at playing these card games against nobility throughout Europe. Interestingly, the Chevalier, played by another a former Kubrick actor, Clockwork Orange's Dr. Frank Alexander, played by Patrick Magee. That character is completely absent from the film's second half. So once Barry decides he needs to get married to a noblewoman, the Chevalier is surprisingly absent from the film. Perhaps he is the voice at Redmond's ear, along with Redmond's own mother, swaying him to act in the ways which he does. So you have the mother who, at one point in the film, Barry's mother she says, "I'm not going to rest until you become a lord with a title, because that's the only way that you're going to be able to make sure that your future sons are going to have any life worth living." And then you also have the Chevalier, who is like the Barry's father figure, because Barry doesn't have a father because Barry's father died in a duel. Now, the specifics of that duel are not told to us, and I have a theory about that. Perhaps the Chevalier is whispering in Redmond's ear throughout the second half of the film, or maybe the Chevalier just goes about and pillages the pockets of the nobility after Barry gets married. We're not really sure what happens with the Chevalier. Once Redmond. Oh God. No. We're not going there, folks. Once Redmond woos the beautiful Lady Lyndon, played by the beautiful Marissa Berenson, he shows his coveting of the Lord Charles Lyndon's shoes. Now, we talk the idea of legs, the idea of shoes is very prevalent. This is I'm going to show you guys something very quickly. Hold on one second. The shoes of Barry Lyndon and the shoes that he wishes to fill are important. He is constantly trying to fill other people's shoes. He's trying to take on the roles of other characters throughout the film, and he's constantly doing this. He sees a soldier, he becomes a soldier. He sees the chevalier. At one point, he becomes the chevalier. Barry might be the most boring character in all of film. So this is the this is the title. This is the poster for the film, and look, it shows a man with both of his legs cut off at the knees. Very interesting. Once Redmond woos the Lady Lyndon, he's playing cards with the Lady Lyndon and her private priest, the Reverend Runt, and they're playing cards, and Barry's got eyes for the Lady Lyndon. She's very beautiful. I don't blame him. And not only is she very beautiful, she's very rich, and she's from noble stock. She's got a name. And they're obviously, playing metaphorical footsies. Metaphorical footsies. That's what they're playing, and we're talking about feet. I just came up with that. And they're looking at each other, and she Barry's probably cheating again, but they're looking at each other. She says, "I'm gonna go outside." Barry follows her. It's a beautiful long shot of them just looking at each other. They get closer and closer, and finally they kiss. Then Barry is at like a social function with a bunch of lords, and he walks up to the table, and at the table is Lady Lyndon's husband, Charles Lyndon. And Charles Lyndon is this cripple lord who has to be wheeled around in a chair, can't walk. And interestingly, that's going to be the same thing that happens to Barry by the end. So the lords are playing cards. Everyone's always playing cards in this movie, and he's like, "Oi, did you poke me wife, eh?" And Barry's like, "Oh no, me sir, I didn't do that. Didn't do it. Wasn't me." And then Charles is like, "Oh, it was you, you bloody bloke. I know it was you. Can't lie to me. I'm a bloody lord, I am." That's what happens. And then Barry says something funny in Irish. He's like, "Let those laugh who win, sir. Good day. Good day to you, sir." And then he leaves, and then the Lord Lyndon's like, "Oh, you," and then he has a heart attack and he dies. He's like, "Oh, you," and then he dies. So, but it's obvious that Barry wants to fill Charles Lyndon's shoes. I mean, he takes his last name, takes another man's last name, just to get some prestige. He is demasculating himself in a world where, by doing that, you are setting a course for your own destruction. I mean, the world that Barry lives in, it's your honor, your prestige, the rumors that exist around your name, all of that is very important in Barry's time. So that was a big mistake on his part, right? He shouldn't have done that. In his hubris, he thought he was doing the right thing, as he constantly does. He does a lot of things in throughout the course of the film where he thinks he's doing the right thing, but he's obviously doing the wrong thing. He's sort of gang stalked by this Captain Feeney and his son. He thinks that by not stopping and having a drink with these men, that he won't get robbed. And the next scene, he gets robbed by those men. He thinks that by disciplining Lord Bullington, he's going to establish a good relationship with him, but it just leads towards a deepening of the trauma between him and Bullington, who's his stepson. He's constantly, he buys expensive paintings, probably fakes. He buys these things that he thinks is going to get him prestige, and it doesn't. It just makes him look like a fool. Yeah, he's constantly trying to uplift himself, but in the process, he downgrades himself. That's his fate. By wishing to take the place of the Lord Lyndon, Redmond incurs the wrath of the resentful son, Lord Bullington, who is essentially like a Hamlet figure. Bullington serves as an arbiter of Barry's fate throughout the film. He insults Barry constantly in front of company, outwardly expresses his discontent with Barry and his mother's marriage, as well as requests to duel Barry in the ending sequences of the film. Or I shouldn't say it's the ending sequences, it's the third act. The climax of the film is the duel between Bullington, who has now become a man and must uphold the honor of his house and his mother, and Barry, who is this upstart who's he's wasted all of the wealth of Bullington's house, and he's considered to be a tumor and must be excised. How's everyone doing today? Happy Easter. Thank you guys for tuning in. If you haven't yet done so, please subscribe to the channel. Like the video, leave a comment at the end. Help me out with the algorithm. We're almost at 1,000 views on the channel, which is crazy for only being active for a month. So I'm really looking forward to the future of this channel. I'm glad everyone's here today. And follow me on Instagram at darth.moduh, DARTH.MODUH for updates on new videos. So all of the reactions of Bullington to his stepfather, Barry, are results of Barry's decisions to pursue the means and ends that well exceed his feeble grasp. Bullington is forced, just as Barry is throughout the film, to uphold the honor of his house and his mother as a man living in the world in which he does. So just like Barry, you know, Bullington is living in the same world where he is constantly forced to do the things he does because he feels like by doing those things, he is upholding the memory of his father and his house and his mother and all that stuff. And there's a weird relationship that he has with his mother. The first image that we see of Leon Vitali, who plays Bullington's older self in the film, because we see him played by a younger actor, and then there's a course of time that's changed, and then we see him played by Leon Vitali, who's much older. And the first scene we see is they're watching a magic show, and he's sitting at the feet of his mother, and she's holding her hand on his shoulder, and he's holding her hand, and it's kind of like this. He's still attached to her, sort of this umbilical cord reference. You know, he's a mama's boy, obviously, and there is also a sort of Oedipal thing going on there. I'm not going to really talk about that right now because, you know, as soon as you start talking about Oedipus, you start talking about Freud, and I hate Freud. What can Redmond's journey tell us about Western society and the predicaments we encounter in the world at large? Well, I think what is interesting is how many skirmishes, fights, and duels appear in the film, which begins and ends with a duel. So, I mean, yes, it's a boring film, but there's a lot of fighting that happens, and there's a lot of different types of fighting. You know, I sort of think of this film as like, I sort of think of film sometimes as like Pokemon evolutions. So you have at the bottom, you sort of have like, you know, Muppets Go to Treasure Island. And then the next evolution would be Princess Bride. And then after that would be this film. You know, it's sort of a Pokemon evolution. Same thing with the movie Brink from Disney Channel and Lords of Dogtown. They're like evolutions of each other. Let's just blade, brah. Soul skating, dude. Bro, I watched that movie last night, and the main character, his first lines in the film are, "What up, fam?" I died. That movie made me who I am. Brink, Disney Channel. Okay, I'm done talking about Brink. The layout of each duel in Barry Lyndon differs either slightly or greatly, which I think is a demonstration of how warfare and conflict evolves over time. So, I mean, we talk about mechanization of warfare, the different technologies that are used throughout time. We have a lot of interesting things that we can talk about as far as warfare, and how at the beginning of the film, the first scene we see is of Barry's father getting killed in a duel. But what's interesting about the layout of that duel is both people are separated by a length of 10 paces, and somebody yells fire, and then they both shoot at the same time. Now, that is not like any of the other duels that we see with guns in the film. By the end of the film, the layout of the duel is you are separated by 10 paces. One person fires, the other person stands their ground, and that's decided by the flip of a penny. In this case, it's a half penny. And the thing about that I think is interesting is that nobody talks about how all the duels are different in the film. And what we find is that Barry is involved in all but one of the duels. That's the one with his father. However, I have a theory that the person who kills Barry's father is Barry. Going back to sort of the Oedipal thing. Barry also has a weird relationship with his mother. And I haven't done the complete zoom in, but at the beginning of the film, if you look at the person who kills Barry's father, he is dressed like Barry dresses later in the film. It looks like Barry. Now, it might not be him, or it is. I don't know. All we know is that the dispute was over the purchase of some horses. Now, what does that mean? Well, we know that the reason why Barry's son dies is over the purchase of some horses. And you could say that Barry also killed his son through his hubris. So who's to say that his father was not also killed by him? I know, Grandma. Shouts out to my grandma, Barbara Nightingale. Go check out her poetry, buy her books. She's so talented, and she doesn't like seeing me puff on this, but it's what's keeping me up and alert for you guys to be entertaining. And I know, Grandma, it's okay. Okay. So I think it's probably Barry who killed his father. But if you think I'm wrong, leave a comment in the comments. Convince me I'm wrong. I'm very willing to be. I'm open to discussion. I'm open to debate. Barry is involved in all these duels, and until the end, he survives all of them without even a scratch. In fact, at one point, he's doing the fist fight. He punches the guy in the face, and blood, like this very cheesy blood, is coming out of the man's mouth. And in the next section, the blood's gone. Then he hits him again, and the blood is back. So I don't know. It's obviously not supposed to mean anything, but I think that's interesting. Barry is sort of a pawn that makes it to the end of each chessboard battle he takes place in, until it is his own hubris, characterized by Lord Bullington, that leaves him worse than dead. He is useless. He wishes to fill the shoes of Lord Charles Lyndon, a cripple, subjected to a life wheeled around in a chair, whose only use to the world is that he is a member of King George III's cabinet. Redmond Barry's own greed gives him exactly what he wished for, which sort of reminds me of Wishmaster. Any of y'all remember Wishmaster? I watched a video on Barry Lyndon in preparation. I watched a few videos in preparation for this one, just so I make sure I cover things that people haven't. Oh, Jason, you have a grandma named Barbara too? That's awesome. Bro, we're like twins, dude. It's like we're connected in like this, like, you know, time's a flat circle. Okay. So I watched a few videos, and one of the videos was critiquing the film. Basically, the YouTuber in question claimed that the film was not good because Barry is a piece of shit and not a likable character. And while I agree with the premise of those things, yes, I do agree with that. He is a piece of shit and he's not a likable character. I don't agree with his conclusion that the film is bad. Where is it written that a main character needs to be likable completely? There needs to be room for growth. At the beginning of the film, Barry is a pampered boy who flits from fancy to fancy, and by the end, he is a broken man that has experienced the death of his only son, whose last act in the film is a magnanimous attempt at a truce with his rival Bullington. So what happens is at the end, there's a misfire of pistols. Bullington's pistol misfires, and he is forced to stand his ground and let Barry take a shot. But what Barry does is, instead of shooting Bullington, he shoots at the ground in an act of mercy. But that is ultimately what leads to his downfall, because instead of being satisfied, Bullington says he's not satisfied, he's not received satisfaction, and he shoots Barry in the leg, which is what renders Barry's, that's what seals his fate when he loses his leg. And that is been the fate of many people throughout time, up until modern surgeries have occurred. You know, as a man, I can't help but think about certain things. Like, what if I had been born in a certain time? So I was born with a cleft lip and palate. I'm also very small. And so I think about, you know, if I had been born in Sparta, I would have been discarded. And there's a lot of points in my life that things have happened, and I've wondered if this had happened to me in real life back in the day when I didn't have the resources I had now. You know, I probably would have just been killed or, you know, left to die. And I know that's not it's interesting to think about, and it's important not to get caught up in those thoughts. But you cannot help but think about how, you know, if you were in this situation that Barry is in, what could you do with, you know, being a slave of the era of your birth? Because that is what we all are. We are all slaves to the era of our births. So his act of mercy leads towards his to his downfall. The journey involved Barry doing a lot of things, most of which are not good, I'll admit, but there are moments of pure beauty in the film. And some of those are Barry saves the Prussian captain who exposed him, and he received a reward from it. His relationship with Captain Grogan, played by Godfrey Quigley, and the Chevalier are also examples of positive male relationships in a film where men are constantly opposed to each other, which is the setting of the film is the 7 Years' War, which is a war between England and France, played on two continents. You have the old world and you have the new world. Um, Additionally, Barry's love for his son, though flawed, is something to be admired. Who wouldn't want to throw their kid a birthday party like Brian's? I mean, I don't know if you guys if you guys haven't seen the film. There's a really awesome scene where Barry's son Brian has this awesome birthday party, and it's sort of like a fantasy for a little kid. So in the video I was talking about before, there was a point where the YouTuber stated that the film presents a nihilistic perspective. While I completely respect people's point of view, I would have to disagree with this conclusion. If anything, this film is obviously told through a fatalistic perspective. If Barry Lyndon shows us anything, it is that there is a poetry in motion within the universe, that though we may not understand it completely, we can witness moments of symmetry, glimpses of the rhyme and reason of this reality. How much agency we have as beings with free will, or the illusion thereof, is the conclusion to an experiment we call life. What are the true limits to nature? How have we as human beings constantly pushed against these limits throughout our brief time aboard this great rocket ship? How far will the experiment take us? Well, it takes Redmond Barry up the hierarchy of English culture of the 18th century and all the 18th century, and all the way back down to perhaps a station that he was of lower stature than he was before he even started his ascent. So you have the climb, and then you have the fall down below where you started, which is like hell. And then the novel, we find out that actually what happens to Barry in the novel is Lord Bullington is sent to America to fight in the war. There's no end duel with him and Bullington. Bullington goes to America, and then he gets divorced from Lady Lyndon, and then he becomes an alcoholic and he dies. That's not, well, we're not told that happens in the film. The ending of the film is Barry is his leg is gone, and he is given a monthly stipend from his ex, Lady Lyndon, but he is completely removed. He has to go back to Ireland. We witness him, Barry, wage war, woo women, vex and trick nobility, feud with his in-laws, and even get robbed. Throughout all of this, he exemplifies the least amount of agency from a main character I can think of, unless we're talking about like Garfield or something. Nothing that Barry does matters at all. Every action he does attempt to take is negated in the following scene. His duel with John Quinn does not result in anything but his forced fleeing back to Dublin. He joins the King's army. Sorry. Oh, God. He joins the King's army only to defect, then joins the Prussians, and then he defects again. So he's kind of like this, almost this like secret agent dude. Like, I don't know if you guys know about the guy who fought in World War II. He fought for the Russians, for the Americans, and the Germans. So he's sort of like that. His marriage results from the death of his only son and a divorce, not to mention the loss of his leg. In spite of his attempts to change his status, Barry is forced to die without an heir to his name, penniless and completely removed from any substantial means of wealth or character. Now, the question that is begging to be answered is, why should I care about Barry Lyndon? Barry the snob, Barry the fornicator, the liar, the rogue, the cheat, the spy. Wait, am I hearing the Powder Puff Girls-esque formula that is inherent in nearly all anti-heroes? Cue in that old-fashioned type of thing I like to call complexity. Goodfellas would have been boring as all hell with a completely moral Henry Hill, as would have been Pulp Fiction's Butch, or Pacino as Michael Corleone in the goated Godfather series. No one is saying don't save the cat, but a cat needs some claws and some teeth, maybe a penchant for pissing on the carpet. But for God's sake, give me some complexity, something to work with. As a kid, I loved Peter Pan. When I watch it now as an adult, I hate the character because he is objectively a major dick. But I recognize the symbolism of his position within the narrative. He's a boy who never grew up, who sees only what is right in front of his eyes. What adult does not see themselves in this flawed portrait of adolescence? And what child does not wish to be as free as the mighty Pan? The attraction is universal. Indeed, Redmond Barry Lyndon's exploits are as seductive as those presented in William Goldman's The Princess Bride, though far more realistic. And let us be honest with one another. Anyone rooting for Lord Bullington or even support of his position against Redmond in the slightest is obviously misguided. Redmond suffered far greater than any insult he may or may not have inflicted upon Bullington. The simple discipline he receives from Redmond by way of the cane is nothing in comparison to the gauntlet inflicted upon soldiers, which Barry no doubt underwent himself when he joined the Prussians. It is only due to Bullington's own chastisement of his stepfather that Redmond acts so violently in front of the many lords in concert, which serves as a setting for Redmond's ultimate descent into social barbarism. So what happens at the concert is Lady Lyndon's playing the piano, and in comes Brian, who's Barry's son and Lord Bullington's stepbrother. And Brian is wearing, guess what? He's wearing Bullington's shoes. And there's a discussion between Bullington and his mother, and he says that he wants to leave and never come back, and that he doesn't like Barry. And then Barry, in front of everyone, all of the noble people, all of their guests, he, beats the bonkers out of them. And it's so funny because the sounds of Barry hitting Bullington are these loud basketball bouncing sounds. But is it really that Redmond's fate? Is it Redmond's? Is it Bullington's? Or is it the strings of fate themselves? Redmond can only react to the scenes presented before him, which makes him one of the most realistic and accessible characters in all film. Like us, Redmond is a prisoner of his era, and like us, Redmond can only witness the fruits of his actions contested against his fate. What agency he does have is constantly supplanted by those who hold higher positions than himself. Still, he struggles, and yet still he fails. In the end, Redmond is undoubtedly human, perhaps the most human character ever, even amongst one of the most realistic stories ever put to film. Though this fact remains, he is ultimately shown to be the equal of all who appear in his tale from pauper to prince. But wait, why should I believe anything presented to me in the first place? We're talking about Kubrick here. Okay, not to mention the novel is told through the most infamous, unreliable narrator in literature, Redmond Barry. Okay. I really, really like this film. I'm going to just read off quickly some notes that I took while watching it this past week. At one point, Grogan, who's one of Barry's mentor, he tells him he can have, you can draw on me for money. And then in the next scene, Grogan dies and says, I actually only have like $100 left. You can have it, but I'm sorry. The first time we see Barry, he's playing cards with his cousin Nora, he's romantically interested in, and in between them is a baby, like a Cupid-like figure. And it's obvious that Nora really wants a child because she's looking at the statue as they're playing cards, which is suggestive of certain things. I wrote, in the early parts of the film, the military exercises and announcements and parade marches are all flanked by children. We see many people die, but the death with the biggest impact on Barry and us, the audience, will be the death of Barry's son by the end of the film. That's the first climax of the film, or the pre-climax. It's strange that Grogan and Barry share an odd kiss of death before Barry absconds and assumes the name of a certain Fakenham, the person that he's impersonating is this British officer named Lieutenant Fakenham, who the actual officer is like Skittles. Very weird. The film is Eye Candy 101, a beautiful film to watch. I mean, I don't know what else to say. The Captain Pottsdorf proposed masquerade for Barry when he meets the Chevalier is to pose as a soldier with a weakness of the loins, which is a term. When you say weakness of the loins, it means the legs. And when people talk about, reasons for unable to serve in military, that's one of the reasons people often give. And by the end of the film, Barry will suffer a weakness of the loins, namely, he will lose his leg. There are certain events in the film where the specifics of these events are uncertain. John Quinn's supposed death, we find out that John Quinn did not die from the duel between him and Barry. Barry's military career is up for question. We're not actually sure what Barry did in the military. We do know that he did save the captain, but we do see later that he's telling his son, Barry is telling his son stories before he goes to sleep, and he's telling him about things that we haven't seen. So it's perhaps Barry's entire military career. It's up for question. How Lady Lyndon was poisoned. So we are told that the type of poison is, I believe that's pronounced Scirochin. Strychnine. But that compound was not synthesized at the time that the film takes place. So that's probably just a device that Kubrick put in because it was easy, but we have to remember that it's not. That's one of the clues we get that shows us that we're watching a movie. Okay. So how Lady Lyndon was poisoned, they claim it was strychnine. I have a theory that it wasn't strychnine, that she didn't try to kill herself, that it was actually it was Bullington. Bullington used the strychnine. Thank you, Grandma. I believe that Bullington purposely poisoned his mother to be used as an excuse for the duel. Because at that time, Barry and Lady Lyndon were still married. But we're not told that. So yeah, that's just a guess I have. And then the last thing that I believe is up for debate is how Brian died. Barry's son Brian, we're told that he perished by falling from a horse. But just like, Barry doesn't see it happening. It happens, and then he gets there, and it's sort of like in The Exorcist, in the novel The Exorcist. In the novel, we're never told what exactly happens in the room with Reagan. We only see the aftermath. This is the same thing. Barry only sees the aftermath of his son's accident. Now, what I think it's Bullington again. I think Bullington paid somebody to make sure that the horse killed Brian. So that's just a theory. It's just a theory, a game theory. What do you guys think? Do you guys think I'm on point with my analysis? Did I miss anything? A lot of people talk about this film. They always want to talk about the long double shots, and I guess we could talk about that. The long double shots are great because it makes you feel like you're actually there. The specific lenses that Kubrick used for the film was a modified, the lenses he used were from NASA, and he modified cameras to allow him to use these really fast lenses, shuttered lenses to capture these beautiful candlelit shots, because all of the film is lit with natural light because Kubrick wanted to have the film look as realistic as possible. So he didn't use any artificial light. Now, I don't think that's actually true. I do think he used artificial light at some points. There's some shots of windows where windows are seen, and I don't know how he would make the lights shine that bright without some artificiality. Thank you, Jason. I really appreciate that. Yeah, it's a great film. I really like this film. I purchased it on Prime, and I put it on all the time because it's a nice long film that you can just put on and work with. If you have something you're working with, the score. I'll talk about the score. The score is really good. It won the Oscar for the score, and it's one of the things that stands out in the film. It starts off with the score. It comes in very strong with the title sequence. It's like like that. That's how it sounds. And there's my favorite. One of my favorite sequences in the film is the concert before Bullington comes in with Brian. The first thing we see with the music is the audience. So we're watching ourselves, right? They're listening to the music, and it sounds like there's a full orchestra right behind you. Like if you're watching the movie, it sounds like the music's coming from behind you as the viewer. Then the camera turns completely 180 degrees, and then you see the full orchestra. So it's beautiful. I love that. It's one of my favorite sequences in all of film. People talk about the 2001 space bone thing. I mean, yeah, I guess that, but it's actually really janky editing. This sequence is far better. I like that sequence from Barry Lyndon, the concert. So go back and watch that, and tell me if you think I'm right about how the music comes from behind you, and it sounds like a full orchestra, because it is. And typically, in films, when you hear a full orchestra from a score, it sounds like it's coming from behind you. And then Kubrick shows us the orchestra is beautiful. It's one of the most beautiful things. What else is there to talk about? I think I hit all the points I really wanted to. Let me see if there's anything that I looked up that I think is worthy of putting on the stream, because I did save a few things. Okay, I'll show you guys this. There's this penny. This is the penny that was used to determine who will shoot first in Barry's duel. They used a real half penny. There you go. Pretty cool. What else is there? So, yeah, that's about it. I really don't have anything else to say about this film. All else I can say is I really love it. You should watch it. If you can't afford to buy it, maybe try to go to a library. Libraries allow you to rent movies for free. Last thing I'll say about the film before I start to close this down is I believe the main idea of this film is that class structures are a thing that we have to make do by, not completely get rid of, because it's impossible. There's always going to be some sort of class structure, no matter what system you're in. We found that out through the communist experiment. So you can't get rid of class structures. All you can try to do is try to create a sort of harmony between classes. And it's obvious that the upward mobility in the time of Barry Lyndon, it's looked down upon to try to climb up the ranks of nobility. There's a lot of hammering down and not a lot of upward mobility. Now we live in a society where that's changed, and not completely changed. There is still that hammering down from specific classes. Now, what we can learn from Barry Lyndon is that often what we have to recognize is that, this materialistic perspective of, amassing wealth and prestige is often the very, very cause of our destruction. Your reach will exceed your grasp. There's this really awesome metaphor I learned about happiness, and how happiness is like trying to hold water in your hands. If you've ever tried to hold water in your hands, you know that you have to cup it in a certain way without grasping it, right? And then as soon as you try to grasp the water, it seeps through your fingers. Now, what I take that to mean is that the idea of wu wei, which means non-grasping in Mandarin, that idea of finding the middle path in Buddhism, where you're not reaching, you're not trying to sway any party or mode of action. However, when you do act, it's always from a path of peace and harmony and truth, and oftentimes a path through God. Now, whether you believe in God or not, that's entirely up to you. You can call it spirit, or you can call it universe, or you can just call it self. I'm not here to tell you what to believe. I'm just telling you that it's important to live your life in a way that you are not trying to covet like Barry does. Barry suffers because he covets. He covets prestige. He covets rank. He covets lordship. He covets women. He covets all of these. He covets action. He is a sinner, and it's his own damn fault that all of this stuff happens, but it's also his fate, and he can't help but follow that because he is bound by it. So what did you guys think of the video? I think that I'm going to be taking a break from the Kubrick analysis because I've already done 2 Kubrick videos. I think what I want to do next is go into some Lynch. So perhaps what I will do next week is do a Lynch stream, okay? So if you like David Lynch, tune in next week at 5 Sunday, 5 p.m. EST. I'll be going into something. I'm not sure yet what I'm going to do, but it will be something Lynch. And that's going to be a film. It's going to be a stream dedicated to my homie Melter. Go follow my homie Melter on Instagram. She's a great artist. What else? Announcements. Go watch some of my other videos that I'll be posting, and you can wait till the end of the video, and I'll have them on the so you can just click at the end of this video and go straight to the next one if you like. I have a playlist with all of my deep dives where some of my past videos were on The Exorcist, The Shining, Enter the Dragon, Mandy. And yeah, please go ahead and like the video, comment, and if you haven't yet done so, subscribe and hit the bell so to stay notified when I go live. And you can also follow me on Instagram at darth.moduh, DARTH.MODUH on Instagram. And yeah, thanks for everyone sliding through. Happy Easter. Shouts out to Jason. Shouts out to Mela. Shouts out to Bill. Shouts out to all the dope MVPs that made it here today. Shouts out to my grandma. Yeah, this was a lot of fun. Can't wait to see you guys next week. I am going to end the video with a little bit of music. Here we go. What do we got? Thanks for coming in, guys. Thank you, Jason. Thank you, Jason. You know, coming up with these videos is pretty tough, you know, but I enjoy it. It takes me about 3 or 4 days to finish completely writing the essays, you know, and I have fun doing it, but it is tough, you know, making it work with going to work, trying to finish my projects with my screenplays, but I really enjoy doing this, and it's a good exercise for me as far as writing and stuff. So yeah, I'm glad you guys are enjoying this channel. Go ahead and go back and watch some of my other videos if you haven't yet done so, and like those as well. It really helps me out, and I can't wait to see you guys next week. All right, it's your boy. I'm out. Peace, y'all. Peace out. Happy Easter. Love you guys.